Seniors, what if I told you the erections you thought you understood aren't what they seem, especially after 60? The truth is, most of what we grew up believing about desire, performance, and intimacy is either incomplete or flat out wrong. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on 12 shocking facts that could completely change how you see your body, your health, and even your closest relationships. And I'll warn you, fact number 9 unsettles every man I've spoken to, but it's too important to ignore. Before we dive in, do something powerful for this community. Hit like, subscribe, and hype this video right now. Hype isn't just a button, it's YouTube's way of letting seniors' voices rise to the top. You can hype 3 videos a week, and each hype tells the world that conversations about love, health, and intimacy after 60 matter. So don't wait, add your voice, and let's uncover the truths no one is talking about. Ephraim Quillan is 67, and if you ever wandered into a smoky jazz lounge in New Orleans in the 1970s, chances are you would have heard his fingers dancing across the keys of an old piano. Back then, Ephraim thought he understood rhythm, love, and desire better than anyone. His music pulled in crowds, and so did his charm. Women adored his confidence, and he believed intimacy was something that would never change with age. He thought erections, romance, and passion were constants, like the steady beat of a jazz drum. For most of his life, that belief went unchallenged. But then came 60, and with it, a series of quiet shocks he never expected. At first, Ephraim brushed off the changes, longer recovery times, moments of unexpected hesitation, and a nagging worry that intimacy was slipping away. He told himself it was just getting older, nothing serious. But the more he ignored it, the more he noticed that his body wasn't playing the same tune it once did. A late-night performance would leave him exhausted. Medications for blood pressure quietly stole the strength he once took for granted. And most disturbing, he began to realize that what he thought was normal aging was actually his body sending him signals he had never been taught to read. Yet, Ephraim's story isn't one of defeat. What makes him relatable to every senior watching is the way he faced these truths. Instead of hiding or feeling ashamed, he started asking questions. He wanted to know what was really happening to men after 60. He spoke with doctors, with old bandmates who shared similar struggles, and even with younger musicians who didn't yet understand what awaited them. In those conversations, he uncovered shocking facts that changed his understanding of intimacy forever. Ephraim's journey matters because it mirrors the silent questions so many seniors carry. He thought he knew it all, but he discovered that love and desire in later life are not about clinging to the past. They're about embracing new truths, adjusting expectations, and finding deeper connections. His story reminds us that intimacy after 60 doesn't end, it evolves, in ways both surprising and powerful. Fact 1: Erections aren't about desire alone. Here's the first shocking truth that Ephraim Quillan, and countless other seniors, had to face: erections after 60 are no longer driven purely by desire. For decades, men are led to believe that intimacy works like a switch. If the spark of attraction is there, the body will automatically respond. But once you cross into your 60s, it isn't that simple anymore. Desire may still burn as brightly as ever, but the body requires something more concrete: strong circulation and healthy blood vessels. Think of an erection less as a symbol of passion and more as a test of your vascular health. The truth is, blood flow is the foundation, and it depends on the condition of your heart, arteries, and lifestyle habits. A man can feel deep longing for his partner, but if his blood vessels are clogged, stiff, or weakened, the physical response won't follow the emotional spark. That's why so many seniors are shocked to find that attraction alone doesn't guarantee performance. It's biology, not willpower. This isn't about shame, it's about awareness. Doctors often say the penis is like a barometer of vascular health. It reacts first when circulation is compromised. And this matters because erectile struggles may be an early warning sign of broader health risks, like high blood pressure or diabetes. In other words, when intimacy becomes unpredictable, it's not proof of fading masculinity, it's your body whispering for help before more serious problems arise. For Ephraim, this realization was eye-opening. He remembered nights when he was fully present with his partner, yet things just didn't work the way they used to. At first, he thought it meant he was losing something essential. But what he discovered is that his body wasn't failing him, it was simply telling the truth he had ignored for years, that love after 60 is not just an emotional journey, but a health journey too. So if you've noticed changes, don't see it as the end. See it as a call to care for your heart, your blood pressure, and your circulation. Desire may light the fire, but after 60, it's your vascular health that keeps the flame alive. Fact 2. Morning erections disappear, and that's normal. One of the most unsettling moments for many men after 60 is waking up and realizing that morning erections, the kind they had taken for granted for decades, are no longer there. For Ephraim Quillan, this change felt almost like a betrayal. He remembered being younger and joking with bandmates about waking up ready for the day. Back then, it was just part of life, automatic and unquestioned. So when those early morning signals began to fade, he worried something was deeply wrong, maybe even a sign of lost manhood. But here's the shocking truth. The disappearance of morning erections after 60 is not a symbol of weakness or failure, it's a natural shift in the body's internal clock. Morning erections, or what doctors call nocturnal penile tumescence, are closely tied to the REM cycles of sleep and the body's circadian rhythm. In youth and middle age, men cycle through deep phases of sleep that trigger those involuntary responses. But as we age, sleep becomes lighter and more fragmented. Seniors often wake up more frequently at night, struggle with insomnia, or spend less time in REM sleep. The result? The body simply doesn't produce those automatic morning signals in the same way it used to. It isn't that desire has disappeared, it's that the timing mechanism has changed. This distinction is powerful, because so many seniors confuse the loss of morning erections with the loss of masculinity. They equate absence with decline, when in truth, it's just the body rewriting its schedule. And here's something rarely discussed. Men who nap during the day or catch up on deeper sleep cycles sometimes notice spontaneous erections outside of the morning, because the trigger was never the clock, it was the sleep cycle itself. Ephraim remembers the relief he felt when he finally understood this. What once felt like proof of decline was actually just his body adapting to a new rhythm. His intimacy with his partner wasn't diminished, it simply shifted into different patterns of the day. And that realization removed the shame he carried silently. So if you've noticed the same change, take comfort in knowing it's not about lost manhood, it's biology adjusting itself. Intimacy doesn't vanish with the sunrise, it simply finds new hours to reveal itself. Fact 3. Pills don't guarantee performance. For many seniors, the little blue pill, and the others like it, seems like the ultimate safety net. Advertisements and word of mouth have painted Viagra and its cousins as miracle workers, promising to restore youth and erase the fears that come with aging. Ephraim Quillan himself once believed that if intimacy ever became an issue, a prescription would fix it instantly. But here's the uncomfortable truth: these pills don't guarantee performance. In fact, they fail in up to 40% of older men, and in some cases, they can even make underlying health issues worse. The reason is simple yet often overlooked. Drugs like Viagra don't create desire, they work by increasing blood flow. And as we've already seen, erections after 60 are tied to the overall health of blood vessels, heart function, and circulation. If those systems are compromised by diabetes, hardened arteries, or long-standing vascular disease, no pill can fully override the damage. What's more, seniors often take multiple medications for blood pressure, heart rhythm, or prostate issues. These can either interact dangerously with erectile drugs or block their effectiveness altogether. Doctors warn that the risks aren't minor. For men with certain heart conditions, combining erectile pills with nitrate medications can cause sudden and dangerous drops in blood pressure. Others may experience headaches, vision changes, or palpitations that make intimacy more stressful than enjoyable. Ephraim recalls a close friend, a trumpet player from his jazz days, who tried one of these medications only to end up in the ER with chest pain. It was a frightening reminder that shortcuts can sometimes backfire. But here's the empowering side of this fact: failure doesn't mean the end. It means the solution isn't in a single pill but in a more holistic approach. Lifestyle changes, such as improving diet, reducing alcohol, exercising regularly, and managing stress, often provide better long-term results than relying on medication alone. For many seniors, combining medical guidance with these changes restores confidence in ways pills alone never could. So the shocking truth is this: Viagra isn't a magic bullet, and it doesn't define your masculinity if it doesn't work for you. Instead, it's an invitation to dig deeper, to treat intimacy not as something you patch up with a pill, but as a reflection of your overall health and your willingness to adapt. For Ephraim, learning this was liberating, because it meant his future wasn't tied to a prescription, but to choices that gave him back real control. Fact 4. Anxiety blocks erections faster than aging. Here's a reality few people talk about openly: anxiety has more power to disrupt erections than aging itself. Men often assume that intimacy struggles after 60 are caused by physical decline, but research and real-life experience show something startling. Stress, fear, and performance anxiety can sabotage the body in seconds. For Ephraim Quillan, this lesson hit hard. He had spent his life commanding a stage with confidence, yet behind closed doors, a single worried thought could silence the rhythm of desire faster than any medical condition ever had. The science explains why. Erections rely on the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and relax mode of the body. Anxiety, however, triggers the opposite, the fight or flight response. When fear creeps in, what if I can't perform? What if I disappoint my partner? The brain sends signals that constrict blood vessels and redirect energy away from intimacy. In seconds, what might have been a tender moment collapses under the weight of invisible stress. This is especially common for seniors who carry unspoken worries about aging. Ephraim once confided that he dreaded the possibility of letting his partner down. That silent fear, more than any physical change, became the biggest obstacle in their intimacy. And this isn't just about men. Partners often sense the tension, creating a cycle where both people feel pressure instead of connection. But here's the empowering truth: unlike some physical changes, anxiety is manageable. Simple shifts, like open conversations with a partner, focusing on connection instead of performance, practicing deep breathing, or even introducing humor, can break the cycle. Seniors who release the pressure to prove themselves often discover intimacy becomes lighter, more joyful, and ironically, more reliable. Ephraim's turning point came when he realized that love wasn't a test he had to pass. Once he embraced intimacy as an experience instead of a performance, his body responded with ease. For seniors watching, the shocking fact is this: it's not always age that blocks you, it's the weight of your own mind. And when you release that burden, you make room for passion to return in ways you never thought possible. Fact 5. Your partner's health affects yours. One of the most overlooked truths about intimacy after 60 is that erections don't exist in isolation. They are deeply connected to a partner's health and emotional state. Ephraim Quillan learned this the hard way. For years, he assumed that any challenges in the bedroom were solely about him, his age, his body, his confidence. But what shocked him was realizing that his partner's journey, especially through menopause and later life stress, directly shaped his own ability to respond. Menopause brings profound changes, shifts in hormone levels, vaginal dryness, and sometimes a loss of spontaneous desire. Add to that the stress of caregiving, health concerns, or simply the emotional wear and tear of life's later years, and you have a recipe that impacts both people in the relationship. When a partner feels disconnected, tired, or unwell, the energy in intimacy shifts. For men, that lack of emotional closeness translates into physical difficulty, not because attraction is gone, but because intimacy is no longer fully shared. Ephraim remembers nights when he sensed his partner's mind was weighed down with worries about family and finances. Even if he was ready physically, her stress created a wall he couldn't climb. At first, he thought this was rejection, but over time, he understood it for what it was, a reminder that intimacy after 60 is a duet, not a solo performance. The body responds not only to desire, but to trust, empathy, and the health of the relationship itself. And here lies the shocking fact: erections can thrive or falter depending on the couple's ability to support each other. Men who approach intimacy with patience, conversation, and emotional care often see better physical responses than those who treat it as a purely mechanical act. Likewise, partners who feel heard and valued often find their own passion returning, creating a cycle of renewal instead of decline. Ephraim's breakthrough came when he stopped viewing intimacy as something to achieve and started seeing it as something to nurture with his partner. That shift not only improved his physical response but deepened their connection in ways no pill could provide. For seniors, the message is clear: your partner's health and emotions aren't obstacles, they're signals. When you tend to them with care, your own body often follows with strength and renewed vitality. Fact 6. Erectile trouble can predict heart problems. When Ephraim Quillan first noticed that intimacy wasn't as reliable as it used to be, he assumed it was simply age catching up with him. But his doctor surprised him with a blunt truth: Ephraim, the problem may not be your age, it may be your heart. That one sentence shifted his entire perspective. What seemed like a private frustration was actually a warning sign of something much larger. Erectile difficulties often show up years before more serious cardiovascular problems. The reason is simple but rarely explained: the arteries in the penis are much smaller than the ones leading to the heart. If those tiny vessels begin to clog with plaque or lose elasticity, they stop functioning properly long before the bigger arteries in the chest do. In other words, trouble in the bedroom can be the very first signal of silent heart disease. This fact is critical for seniors, because many men in their 60s and 70s still feel strong and active. They may not experience chest pain, fatigue, or other classic heart symptoms. But when erections weaken suddenly or become inconsistent, it can be the body's first alarm bell. Ignoring it, or masking it with quick fixes, can mean missing the chance to catch heart disease early, when it's still treatable. Ephraim took his doctor's warning seriously. Tests revealed his cholesterol was higher than he realized, and his arteries were narrowing. By making changes to his diet, adding daily walks, and adjusting his medication, he didn't just improve his intimacy, he protected his heart from a far greater danger. What started as an uncomfortable problem in private became the wake-up call that safeguarded his health. The takeaway for seniors is clear: erectile trouble isn't just about masculinity or desire. Sometimes, it's your heart speaking before anything else does. Listening to that message can be the difference between years of worry and years of life. Fact 7. Erections physically shrink with age. Few topics make men more uneasy than this one, but it's a reality that deserves to be faced honestly. Erections themselves change shape and size as men age. For many seniors, the first time they notice it is startling. Ephraim Quillan remembers looking in the mirror one morning and thinking, something seems different. He hadn't lost his desire, but what he saw, and felt, didn't match the image he had carried of himself for decades. That moment rattled him, but what he later discovered explained everything. The penis, like any other part of the body, is subject to the natural effects of aging. Over time, nerve endings become less sensitive, meaning arousal signals don't travel with the same intensity. The tissues that once stretched easily to create fullness begin to stiffen, making erections feel less firm and slightly smaller. Even the loss of muscle tone in the pelvic floor can subtly affect how the body supports and sustains an erection. Add in a gradual decrease in testosterone and the shrinking isn't just imagined, it's real, though often only a matter of centimeters. Another hidden factor is weight gain. As men age, fat often builds around the lower abdomen and pubic area. This doesn't make the penis physically shorter, but it buries part of the shaft, creating the illusion of shrinkage. For seniors who have always identified masculinity with size and firmness, this can feel like a devastating blow to confidence. Yet here's the part that rarely gets discussed: while the physical changes are real, they don't erase a man's ability to enjoy intimacy. Ephraim's doctor explained that although erections might not look or feel the same, they can still provide pleasure and closeness. And in many cases, lifestyle choices, losing excess weight, strengthening the pelvic muscles, improving circulation, can restore some of what time has taken. Ephraim eventually reframed the change. Instead of focusing on what was lost, he began valuing what remained, and discovered that his partner cared far more about connection than measurement. For seniors, this fact may shock at first, but it carries a liberating truth. Even as erections change in appearance, they remain fully capable of supporting intimacy, closeness, and satisfaction. Aging alters the body, but it doesn't erase love. Fact 8. Medications quietly steal erections. When Ephraim Quillan first began experiencing difficulties with intimacy, he assumed it was the natural progression of age. What he didn't realize at the time was that one of the biggest culprits wasn't his body failing, it was the pills lined up neatly on his nightstand. Like many seniors, Ephraim had prescriptions for blood pressure, cholesterol, and seasonal allergies. What shocked him was learning that those very medications, meant to keep him alive and well, were quietly robbing him of his erections. This is an uncomfortable truth for millions of seniors. Drugs designed to protect the heart, balance mood, or control inflammation often come with hidden side effects that directly affect sexual function. Common blood pressure medications, especially beta blockers and certain diuretics, can restrict blood flow in ways that make it harder to achieve or sustain an erection. Antidepressants, while vital for mental health, alter the brain's chemistry and can blunt desire or delay response. Even over-the-counter remedies, like antihistamines for allergies, can dry out not just sinuses, but intimate responses too. The frustration is compounded by the fact that these side effects aren't always explained clearly. Many men blame themselves, believing their body has simply given up, when in reality the issue is chemical interference. Ephraim recalls the relief he felt when his doctor finally reviewed his prescriptions and explained the connection. He wasn't broken, his body was reacting to the tools he'd been given to stay healthy. The good news is that options exist. Doctors can often adjust dosages, substitute medications, or recommend strategies that reduce side effects without compromising overall health. Lifestyle changes, such as improving diet, increasing activity, or managing stress, can also reduce dependence on certain medications, indirectly improving intimacy. For seniors, the key lesson is this: don't suffer in silence. If intimacy changes suddenly after starting or adjusting a prescription, speak up. Ephraim's turning point came when he realized that protecting his heart and protecting his love life didn't have to be at odds. With honest conversation and medical guidance, he found a balance that supported both. And that's a message every senior needs to hear: your health plan should never steal the joy from your most intimate moments. Fact 9. Disturbing tissue changes. For many men, the idea that erections could physically change in ways that are permanent is something they never even consider. Ephraim Quillan certainly didn't. He thought of his struggles as temporary, something that could be fixed with rest, medication, or patience. But what he eventually discovered unsettled him more than any other fact: if erectile issues are ignored for too long, the tissue inside the penis itself can undergo disturbing changes. It can harden, calcify, and lose elasticity, and in some cases, those changes cannot be reversed. Here's why this happens. Erections depend on a delicate system of smooth muscle fibers and spongy tissue that trap blood. When blood flow is strong and regular, those tissues stay flexible and healthy. But when erections become infrequent, whether from age, disuse, or untreated conditions like diabetes, the tissue doesn't get the oxygen it needs. Over time, it begins to stiffen. Tiny calcium deposits can form, turning supple tissue into something rigid and less responsive. What once expanded easily now resists, leaving men shocked at how much harder it becomes to achieve even partial firmness. Doctors sometimes compare this to what happens with unused muscles. If you stop exercising, muscles weaken and tighten. In the case of erectile tissue, however, the consequences are more serious, because once calcification sets in, flexibility is often gone for good. For seniors, this is the fact that feels most disturbing. Time and neglect can transform what was once living, adaptable tissue into something fixed and unyielding. Ephraim's wake-up call came when he read a medical report describing this process. He realized that intimacy wasn't just about connection, it was about maintenance, about keeping his body's systems active and alive. That pushed him to prioritize blood flow, healthy habits, and even regular intimacy, whether through physical closeness with his partner or other means of stimulation, simply to keep the tissue responsive. The lesson here is sobering but empowering. Erectile changes are not always harmless inconveniences, they can be warning signs of deeper, lasting damage. Ignoring them out of embarrassment or denial allows the problem to worsen. Addressing them early, however, can preserve not just erections, but overall vitality. Seniors need to understand this. Intimacy is not only about pleasure, it's about protecting your body from changes that could otherwise become permanent. Fact 10. Sleep outranks testosterone. For decades, men have been told that testosterone is the master key to their sexual health. If things start to slip, the assumption is almost automatic: my hormones must be too low. But here's the truth that often goes unspoken: poor sleep disrupts erections faster, and more profoundly, than low testosterone ever could. Ephraim Quillan didn't believe it at first. He had heard about hormone therapy, read about low-T clinics, and thought that was the solution. But when his doctor asked him a simple question, "How well are you sleeping?" he realized he hadn't had a full, deep night's rest in years. Sleep isn't just about rest, it's when the body resets, heals, and produces the very hormones and neural signals needed for intimacy. Most nocturnal erections, which act almost like maintenance checks for the tissue, happen during REM sleep. Seniors who toss, turn, or wake repeatedly never spend enough time in those deep cycles. The result? Erections fade, not because testosterone is gone, but because the body is too exhausted to trigger the response. Modern life adds fuel to the problem. Seniors often deal with sleep apnea, restless legs, chronic pain, or medications that disrupt sleep patterns. Some push themselves late into the night watching television or scrolling through their phones, unknowingly sabotaging their intimacy. Ephraim once believed that his waning energy and performance were inevitable with age, until a sleep study revealed that his oxygen levels dipped repeatedly through the night. Treating the apnea not only gave him better rest, but to his amazement, his intimacy improved as well. The shocking fact is this: you can have normal testosterone levels and still struggle if your sleep is broken. And unlike expensive hormone treatments, improving sleep is often simpler and safer. Maintaining a consistent bedtime, reducing caffeine and alcohol, creating a dark and quiet sleep environment, or seeking treatment for apnea can all bring significant improvement. Ephraim's journey proved something powerful. Chasing hormones without fixing sleep is like pouring water into a cracked bucket, it never holds. For seniors, the message is clear. If intimacy feels out of reach, don't just blame testosterone. Look first at your sleep, because in the hierarchy of health, it quietly outranks hormones every time. Fact 11. Erections become more about intimacy than mechanics. In younger years, intimacy is often driven by urgency and physicality, the mechanics of arousal and response. But something unexpected happens after 60. Erections stop being the centerpiece and start becoming part of a larger, richer experience of closeness. Many seniors report that, even when physical changes occur, their relationships become more emotionally connected than ever before. Ephraim Quillan discovered this in his own marriage. For years, he measured intimacy by performance, by how quickly, how often, and how strongly. But with age, he realized that the moments that meant the most were not about mechanics at all, they were about connection. Here's why this shift matters. As bodies change, focusing solely on erections can create disappointment and pressure. But when seniors let go of that expectation and lean into emotional intimacy, something surprising happens: the pressure lifts, and connection deepens. Holding hands, lingering touches, laughter in the middle of the night, these become the sparks that reignite closeness. And ironically, when the stress of performance fades, the body often responds more freely. This isn't to say erections no longer matter. They do. But they take on a different role, less as a measure of masculinity and more as one element of a broader relationship. Studies in the US show that many couples in their 60s and 70s report higher satisfaction than they did in their 40s, even if erections are less frequent or less firm. Why? Because the intimacy is no longer rushed, it's intentional, tender, and meaningful. Ephraim remembers one evening when he and his partner sat on the porch, sharing stories and laughter until midnight. By the time intimacy followed, it wasn't about whether his body matched his expectations, it was about the bond they had nurtured. That shift freed him from shame and gave him a new sense of confidence. For seniors, this fact is liberating. Erections after 60 may not always look or feel the same, but intimacy can become more profound, more emotional, and more fulfilling than ever before. When you stop chasing mechanics and start embracing connection, love reveals its deepest power, one that age can never take away. Fact 12. Lifestyle beats prescriptions in many cases. For seniors, it can feel natural to turn first to prescriptions when intimacy becomes difficult. Pills promise quick results, and advertising makes them sound like the only solution. But the reality is both shocking and empowering. In many cases, lifestyle choices, simple daily habits, outperform medication in restoring sexual function. Ephraim Quillan experienced this transformation firsthand. After years of leaning on prescriptions that only gave partial relief, he committed to small but consistent lifestyle changes. To his surprise, the results were stronger and more lasting than any pill had ever offered. Here's why. Erections depend on blood flow, nerve health, and energy, all of which are profoundly influenced by daily habits. Walking just 30 minutes a day strengthens circulation, lowers blood pressure, and improves heart health, directly supporting erectile function. A high-fiber diet rich in vegetables, fruits, and whole grains clears arteries, reduces cholesterol, and helps the body deliver blood where it's needed. Reducing alcohol prevents the nervous system from being dulled and protects hormone balance. Even trimming belly fat makes a difference, because excess abdominal fat lowers testosterone and compresses blood vessels, creating double damage to intimacy. Doctors increasingly encourage seniors to view lifestyle as the first line of treatment, not the last. A man who loses 10 to 20 pounds, improves his diet, and commits to daily activity can often see improvements equal to or greater than what he'd achieve with a prescription, and without the side effects. Ephraim's own physician told him bluntly, "You don't need more pills. You need more steps, more greens, and less whiskey." That advice proved true. Within months of walking each morning and swapping fried meals for lighter ones, Ephraim noticed his energy return, his sleep improve, and his confidence in intimacy grow stronger. For seniors, the message is clear: prescriptions have their place, but they are not the ultimate answer. Your body responds powerfully to care, movement, and nourishment, no matter your age. Lifestyle doesn't just restore function, it restores pride, control, and the joy of knowing that your health is in your own hands. And that truth is more liberating than any pill could ever be. Ephraim Quillan's story doesn't end with frustration, fear, or shame. His real turning point came when he finally stopped chasing performance as the measure of his worth and began chasing something deeper: health, connection, and genuine intimacy. For years, he had tied his identity to the strength of his erections, believing they were proof of his manhood and the anchor of his love life. But the more he struggled, the more he realized that clinging to that old definition was robbing him of the joy still available in this stage of life. The shift didn't happen overnight. It began with small changes: paying attention to his circulation, taking his walk seriously, listening to his partner instead of worrying about outcome. The more he cared for his body, the more he noticed unexpected gifts: better sleep, clearer energy, and a sense of confidence that didn't depend on performance. And as his anxiety eased, so did the pressure in the bedroom. Intimacy stopped feeling like a test to pass and instead became an experience to savor. What surprised Ephraim most was that his love life after 60 grew richer than anything he had known in his youth. In his younger years, passion had been fiery but rushed, often focused on mechanics. Now, intimacy was slower, deeper, and far more satisfying. He discovered that romance wasn't fading with age, it was evolving into something more profound. Instead of seeing change as loss, he began to see it as transformation, and in that perspective, he found freedom. And that's the message every senior watching needs to hear. These 12 truths may have shocked you, unsettled you, or even made you rethink everything you thought you knew about erections. But they are not the end. They are the beginning of a more honest, more connected, and more fulfilling intimacy after 60. If this opened your eyes, don't just hit hype right now. Hype tells YouTube that seniors' voices matter, and it pushes this conversation to the forefront where others can finally benefit. Share this with a friend who needs it, and subscribe to Ageless Love and Life. Because romance after 60 isn't dying, it's transforming into something more enduring than youth ever offered.